Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in Nerdy Talk do not reflect those of Anime Herald. Due to strong language, viewer discretion is advised. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, it's time for Nerdy Talk. I'm Mike Ferrer. This week I'm joined by Matt Brown. It's going to be a two-man show. So, what are you watching this week, Matt?
Oh, goodness. I'm not really watching much, to be honest.
Really?
Nope. Because it's like full bore summer in Florida, and all I want to do is sleep. Because it's like 90 degrees outside, and I don't want to look at my power bill because I keep it at 74 inside.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, cool story. But I'm watching a few things. For mostly, it's pretty much everything is from this season right now. I'm watching the No Game No Life. I'm continuing that because it's awesome. It's weird. It's like the show is an action show, but it's not really an action show. But it plays out like an action show for boys. You know, with somebody's got to explain everything, and there's like dramatic gestures, and it's just like the main character is punching somebody, except they're not.
Right, they're just hitting him with logic bombs.
Yes. And also I'm watching Mujishi still awesome, still understated, I guess would be the Netflix term. I think a lot of people don't know what to think about it just by looking at a description, and I sympathize or empathize. And it's just good, you know. It's feel good. It's there are things that there are real traps in the world that if you fall into temptation and can't control it, then you're in for some bad stuff, and that's what the show tends to be about. Reminds me a lot of Miyu, actually. Vampire Miyu would do the same sort of thing. Like Miyu would help and or dispel the bad things that people were getting themselves into because they were tempted or didn't think that anybody was paying attention.
That's another series that really kind of flew under the radar in later years.
Yeah, well, coincidentally, or perhaps not, they're both by female mangaka. Or
True.
Manga artists. I should stop using Japanese words that I can't pronounce. Anyway, and the other things that I'm watching are still what I talked about before. Nanana's Buried Treasure. I'm starting to really like the dialogue from that show. The characters have grown on me. It's otherwise completely ordinary, but I like it. And Chaika the Coffin Princess. And that show hasn't gotten creepy yet, so I like it. If it gets creepy, I won't.
The best barometer, the creepy meter.
Pretty much. I mean, the main character is a little girl, so it could happen.
Well, on a random note, don't forget, it was just a few years ago that we kind of celebrated the creepy stuff. Remember Plastic Little's jiggle counter?
No, I don't remember that. I'm glad I don't.
Well, it's exactly as it sounds. It's exactly as it sounds. I'll leave it at that.
You could have just said Key Visual Arts. Literally everything they've done creeps me out.
True. Anyway, anything else you're watching, or?
The other thing I took a break of sorts and watched the latest Makoto Shinkai film, which is on the tip of my tongue, but I'm drawing a blank, having a brain fart.
Children Who Chase Lost Voices?
Yeah, there you go. They all sound the same. Jesus. It's like, okay, this is new because the word children is in it, but other than that, it's an amalgamation of all of the titles that he's had so far. Anyway, I like the show. I like the movie. It's interesting in a way because you can tell that Shinkai is trying to break out of his mold. which is lost slash unrequited love, and the character can't get over it. That's sort of his thing. This one's a little bit different, and it has those elements, but it also has a little bit of the supernatural slash. It's like it's an environmental movie. It reminded me a little bit about Princess Mononoke, in the sense that there's these like weird creatures, and they're all responding to human beings being in their land, and it's kind of a spirited away thing, but not really in a good way. Like people are going after their lost loved ones to reunite themselves with them, and you can just see that there's gonna be something bad happening there.
Definitely.
But I would say overall it's a good film. It's a little bit all over the place thematically, but the visuals are really, that's been Shinkai's strong point. They're just fantastic, and the whole movie is beautiful, just like all the rest. And I can sort of see where he was going with it, and I can enjoy the premise as it is. It wasn't maybe the best polished, I would say.
But like you, I do appreciate that he's trying to step out of his mold. I actually first saw that last year, I think. I really did dig it. I did notice a lot of the issues you did. I definitely had some rough patches, but overall, it was definitely solid.
Yeah, I almost hate to dock points from Shinkai for some of the stuff he does, because he's obviously well studied. I mean, in The Place Promised, in our early days, his second movie, early on in the movie, he's dropping Kenji Miyazawa lyrics, and the guy obviously is well read. And in this movie, when one of the monsters that they talk about is Quetzalcoatl, and I don't even know if I said that right. It's somewhat dense. Like, that name shouldn't, as a consumer of pop culture, which I mostly am, that name really shouldn't mean much to me. And the only time I've ever seen it before was, I think it was one of the Final Fantasy summons or something. I'm going to admit complete ignorance on this. But I think if you're not up with mythology of various cultures, some of these things will just wash over you like it did me.
Absolutely. Personally, I've been trying to keep a good mix of stuff going on. In addition to No Game No Life and Manga Artist and His Assistants, I've still been watching Kindaichi, which the last case, I think it is, started this week, and it looks like it's going to be a really cool one. And I'm still watching Kawaii Complex Guide to Marriage and Hostile Behaviors. This is a show that just really grew on me after the first couple episodes. It's one I definitely say I recommend. It's just charming, fun, and it has a sense of humor that it's not afraid to be goofy when it needs to be, but it doesn't go overboard with it. In a lot of ways, it does remind me of a much less accomplished version of Meizan Ikoku, because it borrows a lot of tropes and concepts, but it does do a good job of standing on its own.
Yeah, when you look at Meizan Ikoku, you have to wonder. I mean, it's just Takahashi's charm. That's the only thing I can really say about it. Those characters are as they're as troporific as they come. It's like you have the weirdo, you have the drunk woman, and the manager is all. I don't know if that was clear.
So today we're stopping now.
Yeah. She was like, "Oh, want me? I'm a widow."
Although I do
but
appreciate.
but you know, I was trying to say that you know, I well, you know how much I love the show. You know, I'll just say it. I love the show. But I don't know, you know, looking at it objectively, I really can't, other than, you know, the way Takahashi's characters make me feel, and that sort of nebulous thing, I don't have anything to say as to why I like the show so much, you know, because it's a fairly ordinary show. I don't know why I like that show more than something like Kimagure Orange Road, which is a very similar show.
I think a lot of it stems from the combination of general writing and the way the characters do carry themselves. Because even though they are kind of like you said, they're troporific, but it's just the way they're written, the way they're fleshed out and handled that really makes a show like that stand out above the crowd.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, on the other hand, I guess it's easy to look back and say that it, you, I'm not sure. What am I trying to say? Um, it's possible those tropes were created in part by Takahashi herself, right? Because if you look at Urusei Yatsura, those characters are very similar. At least if you look at the total sum, or the sum total of all of them, then you can pick out the appropriate parts and make the Meisani Koku characters, and it all just fits. So, you know, credit where credit's due. It may not have seemed troporific at the time.
that is true. It could have just been. I mean, she did blaze a lot of trails with their characters in her titles.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she's pretty much been writing Urusei Yatsura over and over again and just getting more sophisticated each time.
pretty much, though. To be fair, that was her best version of it because it actually had a fucking ending.
I never saw the UI ending.
The
I
only
mean,
one I had
it's a romantic comedy. Is it any possible ending other than those crazy kids got together?
well, I've seen some end in a very dark way.
Yeah, that's true. But those are not romantic comedies.
No, but Takahashi's endings are usually very ambiguous still.
Yeah.
Mizane Koko is the only title that I know of that she wrote that has a definitive actual ending, and that's basically Godai and the landlord getting married. Spoiler alert, of course, this is a 20-year title, so I don't care.
Yeah. How many of us have had the chance to see that whole show legally?
True. Sorry, almost 30-year-old at this point. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's funny how the foreign imports work. It's like, don't spoil it. It's 20 years old, but don't spoil it.
I mean, it. I just see what going on with the whole watching it legally. That's very true because I mean, while it did have a VHS run back in the day, the only DVDs that we had were those ones that after set three it was only available through Right Stuff, and as you got later on it was only pre-orders or something like that. So it's like
Yeah.
the final box set goes for like $500, if not more.
I think
I mean,
I think I saw it listed on Amazon for 800 at some point.
yeah, I mean it's like hunting down City Hunter 91. You're not gonna get that
Yeah.
unless you're very lucky.
And if you do manage to get it and you paid what I think you did, then buyer's remorse abounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially,
I have some regrets about Meisane Koku because I really did enjoy the show, but you know, I don't really pay attention to that sort of thing, and I didn't expect that something that, you know, something that Viz was giving me for free up until that third set, as you mentioned, was gonna just drop off the face of the earth like that.
exactly. I mean, it just
I mean, I'm not saying that Right Stuff is a no-name retailer or anything, but it's a fairly no-name release that only gets released on Right Stuff.
right because I mean, I do appreciate their store. I love their services. I mean, I have dozens of things already pre-ordered with them right now. Just a disclaimer for everyone listening, but I mean, when you look at the overall equation, Right Stuff compared to say most your average online retailer, like say a buy.com, Amazon, they're a drop within a thimble, within a bucket. They are tiny. And the fact that you have to forego a lot of the broader market does hurt the title a lot.
I agree.
Otherwise, I've been watching Space Adventure Cobra. I've been rewatching for this review, which I'm hoping to get up this week. Um, it's a really great show. I love the whole space jockey atmosphere, and I love the characters. But I know for a fact this is going to be the type of show that only sells to a certain group of people.
Oh, hey, that's that show that's being released by the company that's a drop of within a bucket, within a thimble, within another bucket, right?
They're the biggest anime retailer, but like specialty. But again, I'm just saying in comparison to, they're going to kill me. But oh well.
Are they the biggest?
For dedicated anime retailers, yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
So I would have, yeah, I can see that now.
there was
I would have thought a few years ago that it was Anime Nation, but they kind of,
well, they fell through the floor in terms of quality. Like they still have the
yeah,
Yahoo store, which definitely hurts what they can do for certain features like inventory track and stuff like that. And
yeah,
they're
they
definitely,
actually moved to their own store and then back to the Yahoo store, and that was probably a bad thing.
oh yeah. So
But
I mean,
yeah, I guess Right Stuff has had the most stable of the anime stores.
hmm. Plus I do appreciate that they get these low key releases that tend to go right under the radar. Like I am adoring Cobra right now.
Yeah, I think you're not alone on that. I want to say that Daryl Surratt enjoyed
Hmm.
that show, if I remember right from my listening of their stuff.
Correct. Even the pilot was appreciated and somewhat entertaining. But yeah. Otherwise, I haven't been watching a lot. I know I've only been watching like 6 shows. Only.
Is Cobra still on? Is Cobra still on Crunchyroll?
Not the original, but there was like a more recent like OVA something that's still up there.
Okay, I see. So this is the original show that Right Stuff has, or
Yep.
Nozomi.
Yep, the like original 1981 or 82, the one where during the fight scenes you have that awesome 1970s like shaft guitar riff. Shaft guitar riff was great.
Nice. You damn right.
But yeah, I really, it's one that I speak very highly of because it's a fantastic show. For those that haven't seen it, basically revolves around, well, Cobra, uh, infamous space pirate who was known and feared by so many people, to the point where all the other pirates in the universe banded together to try and kill him. And he kind of got tired of the life, so he basically, quote unquote, retired. He wiped his memories, changed his appearance, took on the life of an office worker named like Johnson or something like that. And for 5 years, that was his life. Till one day, on the day of his bonus, he ends up going to what they call a trip movie, which was like a holographic or almost like a dreamlike recreation of a film that kind of reactivated his memories, and he picked up right where he left off, and they're off to, along with his long-standing partner, Lady Omroyd, or Omroyd Lady, depending on which version you ascribe to. They're trying to hunt down this like fantastic treasure, which is like this ultimate weapon left by the late great Captain Nelson. But at the same time, they have to deal with the pirate guild that's picked up the search for them and the weapon. In addition to numerous people that just want him completely just dead. He faces off against like bounty hunters, assassins, killer plant people. It's a show that's just generally exciting. It definitely wears its age proudly. It's I mean it's unquestionably a child of like the late 70s, early 80s, but it is splendid for us. I highly recommend it.
He's all yours, bounty hunter.
All right. Well, this isn't specifically anime related. Everyone knows that in the next few days we're going to be hitting E3, which is the biggest gaming event of the year. It's here that we see all of the major players strut their stuff, put out their best, and put their best foot forward. So I figured before we really get rolling, I wanted to kind of discuss this since it's going to be pretty much dominating the news, whether we like it or not, for the next week. Um, And for that, we brought in Benjamin Fennell, or as you know him, What's McGee.
That's right.
So, what are your thoughts on next week, Ben?
Well, it's pretty clear that Nintendo is poised to pretty much rule the show this year, while we keep seeing evidence that Sony has next to nothing and that their big giveaway in Project Beast has already been leaked. So, it's going to be a very interesting year, to say the least, anyway, given that Nintendo looks like, at least according to game trailers, has at least 8 unrevealed titles to show off there this year. In addition to, of course, things we've known about for a while, from X to the upcoming Wii U Zelda game as well, that they've been teasing for years. Bayonetta 2, of course, Hyrule Warriors, and a good number of others too. And of course, their NFC/NFP figurine platform that they're getting ready to launch on the Wii U later this year and the 3DS next year too, for that matter.
If I recall correctly, wasn't Zelda Wii U originally like set to go by TGS or something like that last year?
Yeah, and they were even talking about actually showing it at E3 last year too, but they decided to hold it back just at the last minute. So it's obviously been in the works for at least 3 years now at this point, and probably is fairly close to being ready for release, and may even be out as soon as the holiday season this year, depending on just how far along it is now at this point. But it's obviously something that they've been polishing for some time, and it will be very interesting, considering that Aonuma's had a very different attitude toward the series in recent years, probably in part thanks to the sales struggles that Skyward Sword had in the first place. So it'll be interesting to see just how they refresh their take on console Zelda now between this and Hyrule Warriors, and just the fact that they were able to return to sort of more old school style gameplay as effectively as they did with A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS.
From what I heard, Aonuma decided that he's terrible at making Zelda games and he wanted help. Is that the right characterization?
Something close to it, at least. Probably not the exact wording, but he sort of realizes, it seems, that he's making the same game over and over again, and people are getting frustrated with it. So.
Pretty much. I mean, even Skyward Sword was pretty much the same thing, except far, far more restrictive. Plus, they gave you fee, which no one likes fee.
Exactly.
I remember I really liked Twilight Princess, but I could see the elements of Twilight Princess, which are kind of quintessential Aonuma, and the Skyward Sword had it in spades, and I didn't really like that it was so. Twilight Princess managed to have like these wide open fields and actual exploration, and it was all contiguous and made sense. And Skyward Sword was just like it had a segment here, a segment there, but nothing was connected.
Yeah, what I guess what it comes down to is that Twilight Princess felt like a real evolution of the Zelda experience, where it sounds like Skyward Sword was more experimental than anything else and had some good ideas, but weren't really implemented half as well as they could have been.
Well, Skyward Sword, as I was one of those people that bought this thing like day zero. The problem with Skyward Sword was that it did some nice things. I liked the questing, I liked the crafting, but everything else took a step way backwards. The combat became just clunky and unintuitive because they had to shoehorn in those motion plus controls. So, some people play.
That was more about like puzzles within combat,
Yeah,
than just the visceral experience. When it should have been all about just the good feeling of hacking everything down in combat.
Right. When you're fighting something, you don't want to have to sit there and figure stuff out. I mean, if you're going to be killing something, you want to feel like you're killing something. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And like with Okami, where you'd be flicking your wrist to just rip into your enemies, or One-Chanbara, where you're just constantly whipping the Wii remote around to tear through the zombies and that.
Exactly. And the other thing was that everything else, it felt like a real setback. Like, the overall was not an overall. It was a hub. It was like having Peach's Castle again in Super Mario 64. Mm. And when
that's
you're...
not what you wanted in Zelda.
Exactly. I mean, granted, Hyrule Field and Ocarina of Time was a hub. It never felt like it, though.
Yeah, it was that way in Majora's Mask, too. I always felt like those were small, but I really enjoyed how huge the worlds felt in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
Well, right. Even in Ocarina of Time, it felt like it was all connected, at least in the appropriate ways,
Indeed.
Exactly.
And then, of course, every time night fell, you were waist deep in Stelthos nights.
And occasionally a giant one.
Exactly. And you just wanted to run when you saw those.
Mm. Even though they died just as fast.
That's right. They just looked more threatening, but that was about
Mm.
it. It's like, hey guys, I'm here for the party too. Ow.
So, are there any games you guys are really looking forward to this year? Like, anything you'd love to see announced?
Theatrhythm, duh.
Well, of course,
That's
yeah.
coming out soon.
Yep, and then of course we have X as well, naturally, to get hyped about as well, since that's finally going to be coming this year.
Yeah,
So that'll
I
be good.
keep waiting for somebody to tell me that that's available and I can buy it.
That'll be the way to do it. Then we got Hyrule Warriors coming out sooner than we know now too. So
Same story on that one.
But
yeah,
by the way, I have to say this at the outset. Sony told us we cannot include the Last Guardian into any of our predictions.
it's got to
Just
go ahead
kidding.
and just say it. Vaporware.
Mm-hmm.
The last what? I don't even care.
It's that concept trailer that Sony fans thought was gonna make them cry, but it has no gameplay and isn't really a game.
Oh, you mean the Order 1887?
That's right.
Yeah, the only thing that Sony has going for it right now, as far as I'm concerned, is The Last of Us, and the PS4 will have that, and unfortunately, the rest of us won't.
Yes, the PS4 will have a port of a game that just came out a year ago now. That'll move hardware. Oof.
It might, even though it shouldn't.
I would like, honestly, I'd love to see them get back to that experimental stuff with Sony. Like they were at their best when they're putting out stuff like Medieval, Parappa the Rapper, that really offbeat stuff that it wasn't always the best in the world, but it was always interesting. Like Primal, I really enjoyed, even though it was
Yeah.
pretty much Prince of Persia
I think-
without
I like
the death.
Primal, too. But yeah, that Sony's pretty much dead now. Instead, experimental games at Sony now are things like Ho Ho Come, which looks like a Flash game that should have been done in at least 2 or 3 months at most, which has taken well over a year to develop, and it's about to hit its second E3 now. It's just not coming out till August. And apparently, experimental for them means not really having a core gameplay system, just flying around and looking at stuff.
I mean, other than Final Fantasy games, which I continue to love for some reason, I would say the best thing that's ever come out on a Sony platform was Katamari. So,
But that was Namco.
Yep. And of course, Namco is
but it
working
came
very
out on a
closely with
Sony platform.
Nintendo now too. And of course, Nintendo is the only one that has yet to get a real Katamari game. We might hopefully finally be due for one of those one of these days. Yeah, now just given that Nintendo
Yeah.
is funneling as much money into Namco as they are at this point now.
Yeah, but even
That's
that
true.
even that doesn't ensure anything. Because I mean, don't forget the latest Tales game's not coming to the U.S. and because it's on the 3DS.
Yeah, which is incredibly stupid while they're basically burning the franchise to the ground on Sony systems. Meanwhile, their systems have basically cratered everywhere, so it's, I guess, sort of more of a matter of seeing what happens after the Sony crash finally.
Assuming the Sony crash happens at some point.
Yeah, well, they're sort of sprinting toward it right now, so.
They've got a long way to sprint. I'm just gonna say that.
It's still nearer than we know, that's for sure. Because just looking at where they are financially right now and the fact that they're not making money on their systems and no one else is either, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Microsoft, how long it's taken for them to show some humility, and even then, they're still on top in a lot of ways. It takes a very long time for a top company to fall.
Yeah, well, Sony's is definitely visibly in motion right now. They're right now scrambling just to lay off employees and sell everything they can from within the company to stay afloat right now. Gaming isn't profitable for them, and even Microsoft is visibly moving toward turning the Xbox into just an overarching brand and getting out of consoles after over a decade of billions in losses to show for the brand. And of course, the new management is not exactly hurting that either, since they're pretty much taking the platform's problems more seriously, as opposed to just thinking they can keep dumping billions into it without batting an eye.
Although they probably could for a few years more.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure they could, yeah. But yeah, these people do seem to have realized the shareholders are mad because it's just been billions in losses and nothing gained for them in that respect. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the brand once they're out of hardware, though.
I think the main thing they've realized is that they don't know how to spend their money to get results.
Yeah, that's for sure. They don't really seem like they ever really knew what they were doing in the industry beyond just putting out sort of limited PC boxes. And then, of course,
Hmm.
Sony's following them in that direction now, too. But they don't know how to make a console or what differentiates a console from a PC in the first place. And that's
Well,
pretty important.
it is. However, at the same time, I don't. I mean, Satya Nadella is a very smart guy. I have a feeling that if anyone can really figure out what to do with that brand, it's going to be the people he puts in there because
Yeah,
it's it is a strong brand. The problem is they need a better positioning for it.
exactly. It's sort of post-console Xbox will be interesting to watch.
Right, because right now there's Xbox Music, which is built into XP. I
Mm.
know XP Windows 8. Wow, I screwed that one up. But anyway, um, but you can really start to see that they're trying to build that Xbox brand into other things at this point, like
Mm.
which is definitely smart on their part. They're trying to build it as more of an entertainment brand, which is what they want to begin with.
I guess so. I guess more or less just like sort of Microsoft Entertainment, the brand names, sort of contiguous with the Windows branding and their OSs
Exa-
and their smart devices, which is smarter than a separate console trying to compete in traditional markets like
ex-
this.
exactly, because I mean, even the Xbox One, the interface is straight up Windows 8.
Mm.
It's a specialized version, but it's straight up Windows Metro, which I mean, I it I like they're trying to build it into their ecosystem, that consistent look, feel, and function, which is definitely smart on their part. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious to see what they do with that Xbox brand
Yeah,
because
that'll be interesting to see.
they got a good head on their shoulders. They have good people behind them, um, and I have a feeling that there's going to be some really interesting stuff coming out of that division that won't be necessarily tied to the hardware.
Indeed. Well, that'll be interesting to watch out for and see what they do. And of course, now
Hmm.
Steve Ballmer is buying the LA Clippers from Donald Sterling, so rewarding racism with billions of dollars. And of course, the big concern seems to be that everybody thinks that after Sterling, Ballmer's just going to be a really, really boring owner for the team now, too.
Well,
Clearly,
that's not fair.
Yeah, that's not even fair.
they clearly need to watch some of those videos of him hopping around shouting woo a lot.
It's true that he was a boring owner of everything that he was. Well, he wasn't an owner at Microsoft, but
CEO, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yep.
developers.
That's right. They get to upgrade from Donald Sterling's racist rants to a sweaty egg.
Well, at least he's entertaining. I mean, I saw him at Build a couple last year, and it was definitely interesting.
He just walks around pointing his fingers to everybody, yelling, developers, 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 doing the finger guns.
Yeah, developers. Why aren't there more developers? Where did they go?
Trying to be the next Pied Piper, on which note the first season of Silicon Valley ended the other day, and that show is really, really good, too. It's
Yeah.
scathing. It's Mike Judge just ripping the tech world apart, basically.
Good. We're an insular bunch.
Yeah, he does not pull any punches, and it is
The
amazing.
mean jerk value.
Yes, that whole segment was amazing, and of course there was an epiphany moment for Thomas Middleditch's character,
That is a narrow car.
and they really got into the logistics.
Fucking
of
billionaires.
What it would take to jerk off every guy in the room within as little time as possible. Oh man, that whole episode was just great.
Cool story, bro.
Cool story, bro. So,
That's right.
Honestly, I don't care about anything that's happening at E3 except for Theater Rhythm. I know that makes me narrow-minded, but I don't care.
Well, it means you're not going to be disappointed either way.
well, I'll be watching the Nintendo conference, then I'll be playing a shit ton of Mario Kart until that Smash Brothers Invitational starts up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'll be paying attention to Nintendo stuff because they're the only ones with anything interesting this year anyway. And of course, it looks like they're going to have some surprises online too. So
I've played enough Mario Kart.
Well,
No offense.
the problem with Sony's conferences, we've already got confirmation that Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 are both skipping E3.
Yep, and then of course
So
Yep.
now Last Guardian, so they've got basically nothing but
um,
Project Beast and Morpheus right now, and then last year's content.
they pretty much got Morpheus is probably going to be a big part. I'm completely cereblind, so that doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah,
Um,
it just looks uncomfortable in every way, so
um,
I couldn't care less about the VR stuff myself.
um, Uncharted will probably be there. Um,
I think
just
more the remake though than the new one. From what they said,
yeah.
they were down to like one person working on the new one now, so they'll be lucky if that's ready in 2 or 3 years from now. And to this point, the PS4 will be lucky if it has much of a presence anymore by then too.
Let's see. And on top of that, you'll probably see something from Polyphony Digital, like just a teaser render for Gran Turismo 7 to get people excited.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see some teasers for stuff that could very
Um,
well end up turning into vaporware, or otherwise, if it hits at all, will be in like 2016, 2017 releases,
mm,
given the delays we're seeing left and right now. And of course, if they try to do any more of those sort of sneering hype videos like last year, it's just
mm,
gonna look sad.
yeah. Microsoft, I'm actually kind of interested in seeing because it could go that they're the wild card in terms of what are they going to have because Rareware hasn't been doing much.
Yeah, it's been
Um,
discussed that we're probably going to see them potentially busted down to download only games at this right now after Kinect Sports Rivals was a huge flop too.
exactly.
So they're just about done at this point. But yeah, I imagine we'll probably see some more major Western games, but probably not a whole lot that's going to be coming too soon. And then of course there's talk of a Halo, I guess, like collection of their
Yeah,
older games.
Halo 2 Anniversary is probably going to be there. Halo 5 definitely.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and of course they've already confirmed that's not coming till the holidays next year too, but they're going to want to at least have a trailer for that to try to create hype.
then there's gonna be a lot of third party stuff on both of theirs. Like I don't doubt they're gonna be showing at Sony's. I have a feeling they're gonna show Destiny because they've been kind of saying quote unquote leaked footage.
Yeah, they're gonna see if they can do it. It'll be interesting to see how Bungie does without a direct backing from the major players too. After
Well,
we saw how much Epic floundered with Bulletstorm when they stepped away from Microsoft and Gears of War.
I think they could. I think they could pull it off. They're a talented studio. They got some really good minds behind them. It's just it's a different environment because then you can't let the egos get too big.
Exactly.
Sony will definitely see the order. You will definitely see the order. Just because
Yes.
they're pushing it as their big game this year, I think.
Yes, even though of course Ready at Dawn is telling us that gameplay is taking a back seat in the design.
At times we thought we were making a movie.
That's
As
right.
long as the graphics are good. Come on.
That's right. That rusty pipe needs to look like it's a real thing, so that everybody will know just how much pipe they're swinging.
Yep.
As long as it has the right shaders.
That's right.
Then Jeff Keighley will sit there, gush over it, then start making accusatory remarks on Nintendo. I know.
That's right. And he'll naturally come out wearing his Doritos hat and his Mountain Dew box boots and things like that, decreeing
Yes.
that everybody has to buy Sony and Microsoft systems again, as usual. It's times like that where you kind of wish that some of the Twitter memes were real, just so we could watch Reggie cream him in Smash Brothers with actual characters based off of them. Too.
Oh man, I would laugh so hard if Reggie was in a new Smash. Visa Mech.
Right.
It wouldn't have to. It would have to be Visa Mech though.
Exactly, yeah. He would have all kinds of just sort of Terminator moves there, lasers and things like that.
I beams. Yeah.
Game! But don't knock him in the water.
And he only lasts like 2 minutes, then the battery dies.
That's right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kinds of figurines they have to show off for that too, since that's the first retail game confirmed to use those too.
I thought they walked that back.
Huh? I don't know. I think I've read. I guess there's still talk of that supposedly happening, but I don't know if they have walked it back or not. I haven't seen it
Yeah.
widely reported, so I guess
Yeah,
we'll see. Basically.
Yeah, I thought they walked that back, so it's in that like maybe territory now.
Yeah. Well, either way, I
so-
guess we'll see what they say there. It should be interesting either way. So.
So, Nintendo for the past few major directs like this have had cases where they'll say, "Doesn't that look great? This is available on an eShop now." Do you think we'll have
Exactly.
a moment like that on Tuesday?
Yeah, I would bet good money on that. Potentially both 3DS and Wii U, given that they've been doing that at the end of just about every other Direct lately. So I could see them having
Mm.
special eShop titles ready for both systems to go and just to say, hey, get to it as soon as the Direct is over.
It's not going to be
Mm.
X, so I don't give a fuck.
But what if it's a secret eShop no-pwn adventure game?
Nope. Don't care.
Everything
If it's not X.
with pwn.
No sim, no pwn.
I mean, I expect X to have plenty of pwn. Don't get me wrong.
That's
But
right.
as long as it's X proper, and I don't even know what X is.
Yeah, Xeno
like-
whatever.
Yeah. It's like Xeno not Gears. Xeno not Gears. That's it.
It is actually suspected that we may finally see another 3DS game from them too, since the only 3DS game from Monolith so far has been Project Cross Zone, and we've known for a while that they've been working on something else for the system directly in-house too, so...
Mm.
Yeah, I would prefer that they work for something for a proper console, and you know, I love my 3DS. Don't get me wrong, but every game that I played on it so far, I thought, gosh, I wish I could look on this. I wish I could look at this on a real size TV, and that's pretty much held constant. Even though all of the games that I played on the 3DS so far are awesome, even though it's only been like 3 of them.
Well, that's sort of the portable experience right there now anyway. We're seeing essentially console style and quality games, but being made on a budget, so we're getting a much bigger variety and much more timely releases. That's sort of the trade-off with portable gaming these days.
Yeah, but it's like there's 30 different ways of throwing a video feed to a TV, and Nintendo is not
I wouldn't be shocked if we saw
hooked
some
into
part
any
of
of
that
those.
in the future, though. At the end, too, one of the big issues, of course, is just the fact that we still have sort of the dual screen element, and obviously you'd probably still want to use your system as the controller itself while you're using that too, and make sure
Sure,
that
I mean I wouldn't discount the other screen, obviously, but the main screen, the 3D element does nothing for me, even though I am not stereo blind.
Yeah, I like the 3D. It's just sort of a novelty, but I never use it for more than a minute or two at absolute most myself.
Yeah, I always turn it off almost immediately after I turn it on.
Yeah, for me, it's usually I'll look at it and just to turn it on in one scene or another, or one area or another, just to see how cool it looks in 3D. Think, hey, neat, and then I'll turn it off again.
Yep. And that's how I feel about 3D in general, even when it comes to movies. I never, like, the thought of buying a 3D TV is torture to me.
Yeah, same here. I would never sit
I
through
don't
a
want
3D
my
movie.
eyes to work that hard at all times.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's been interesting to see how they're handling the DS emulation on the Wii U in Japan now, too, because they've released the first Brain Age over there just the other day, and they have the two screens right next to each other on the gamepad when you play that, so it's more or less still like holding the DS sideways as it was when using the original Brain Age on there. So it sort of replicates the full original experience, but on the single Wii U gamepad screen, and I'm not sure how that translates to the TV side of the experience, but it definitely works well, at least in terms of presentation.
Moving on. Earlier this week, the first actual show trailer for Sailor Moon Crystal made its way to the web. It wasn't long, it's about a minute and a half, but it's the first real actual glimpse of actual animation that we got for the show itself. It begins with Luna narrating a short scene, and from there, just kind of escalates. Anyway, since it's been out for a few days, since this is somewhat of a, somewhat popular property, just figured I'd kind of get your guys' input on that.
Well, I'll go first because I won't be long. I'm just going to say that I can see why Sailor Moon is popular, but I'm pretty much a Sailor Moon novice. I haven't really paid attention to anything that's happened with that property. And it's just from the footage I've watched, the new trailer seems like more of the same. Except it's a little bit prettier because it's more modern. And that's pretty much what it looks like to me.
Well, I never watched the whole show a whole lot except for a handful of dubbed episodes I caught when I was a teenager and homesick a few times. And then I dated somebody who was crazily obsessed with the show, but I've mostly purged my mind of everything she threw into that back then. So I don't know nearly as much as I could stand to, but I do feel like I have to say two things. One is more Melvin, whatever his name is in Japanese, more of him, just because. Because every show like that needs more of the nerdy character who's just there to make things awkward. And also, if there isn't yet, somebody needs to make one of those memes for fighting evil by moonlight intensifies. That's about it.
All right. Personally, I think the trailer looks great. I'm kind of interested in seeing how it's going because the original series diverted pretty heavily from the source material at times.
I've heard it was very heavy on the filler too.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of filler.
Sort of like Monster of the Week type stuff.
Like
Yep.
like Nadia filler.
Worse.
Wow, that's true.
That was a fillerific show. But it did work because they had a really good team behind it. Notably, Kuniko Ikuhara, who is also responsible for Revolutionary Girl Utena, that adaptation.
It's Mawaru Penguin Drum as well.
And Penguin Drum, yeah.
That's one I've been wanting to see for a while myself because it looks so freaking weird.
Likewise.
I mean, considering other Magical Girl shows, would you say that the filler is excessive or about normal?
Yeah, about par for the course, to be honest. It's because they had such a large allotment of episodes. They had 200 in all, plus 3 movies. There was a lot of room for kind of just putting in filler stuff to pad out things.
The sad thing is, after watching years of One Piece, that doesn't even sound like that many episodes to me anymore.
Well, One Piece is kind of a monstrosity in that way. It's over 600 episodes at this point. It's kind of like saying, after watching Doraemon for a couple of years, it doesn't sound that bad.
Exactly, yes. I'm living with Stockholm Syndrome now, because I'm going to be held hostage to at least 800 and 900 some episodes when it finally ends.
If not more.
At least it's not like DBZ. It's like Arc 3, Episode 1.
Yeah.
Episode 2.
Yeah, there's lots of storylines.
Episode
big
3.
fights in One Piece. Exactly. The big fights in One Piece never tend to last more than a handful of episodes, and even then they have about a million other things going on that they tend to cut between in the big fights anyway. So.
Exactly. It's not like they just had that one thing and then they cut to some unrelated scene.
Exactly, and then nobody ever spends forever charging up super attacks on that show either.
Mm-mm.
Instead, you just get big rubber arms and things like that getting thrown around. And nobody ever really dies, too. It's extremely rare for anybody to die on One Piece, no matter how badly injured they are.
Even the dead come back. What about that, what's his name, the skeleton?
Yeah. Brooke, I'll be seeing in the next story arc, too. Of course, he's undead, and so I'll be looking forward to him and his giant afro that he somehow still managed to maintain, even in death. And I mean, I believe Arlong is back later, even though Luffy collapsed a gigantic house on top of him when he defeated him. And it just kind of gets crazier and crazier.
Wait,
as the
so
game
he is
goes.
the Wicked Witch of the East? I'm confused.
Pretty much. He's also kind of a racist shark man, so...
Anyway, pulling things back a bit, I'm kind of curious to see how this crystal really turns out, because this is one where, if I remember correctly, Takeuchi is a little more heavily involved this time to ensure it stays a bit more faithful to the source material. So,
I've got my comments about that, but I'll withhold them from now.
Yeah, I'm also kind of curious. I haven't kept up with everything that's
Yeah.
been on in more recent years, but I don't know how common magical girl shows are now, so I'm interested in how much of sort of a niche this could potentially fill in that respect.
There's
They're
definitely a
almost
niche.
not common at all.
That's what I thought.
It's definitely a niche, but the market's really changed a lot. I mean, because while you do have Precure, which is kind of like definitely aimed at the Sailor Moon set, they actually have a bit of a brony issue where they have the older fans coming in and kind of doing bad things. But anyway,
Of course, nerds.
yeah. But anyway,
Those nerds.
most of your magical girl shows tend to either skew towards that young audience, or you have stuff like Madoka Magica, which is aimed at adult males.
Magical girls with giant tits, apparently.
Actually, Madoka Magica is kind of a bad example for that because
Yeah.
it's
like their example of the anti-hero.
yeah,
Oh, really?
it's basically a deconstruction of Magical Girl.
Huh, interesting at least. It's a little bit something different.
Yeah, it's up on Netflix. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
I
I'll have to
recommend
check it out sometime then. It does sound interesting.
Or you could buy it from Aniplex for $11 billion.
It's like they want us to not buy their shows.
I could go into whole stories about that, but I'm not going to today.
Well, we'll get there eventually.
Let's see. Madoka Magica on DVD costs.
Or we'll get there right now.
Well,
That's right. We'll beat that drum, and that drum will be Aniplex.
$30 each at Right Stuff.
How many episodes?
4.
Oh wow, well it's like going back to the I guess early 2000s, late 90s.
Well,
That is also with not free shipping, I'm guessing.
Plus shipping. So we'll get into that in a few minutes, actually, because that's our next topic.
Yeah, that seems like a little bit of a broken business model, just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, I already paid Amazon $80 a year for shipping. I'm not going to pay anybody else.
I don't even
Anyway.
pay Amazon for shipping. I just make orders that are big enough to get for the shipping for free, so that I can cheap out and wait longer for everything to arrive.
Well, I
Likewise.
do that too, but I also get it in 2 days instead of whenever. Anyway.
Anyway, I think we've said what needs to be said. I'm definitely interested in Crystal. Looking forward to seeing how it turns out next month.
That was before we move on from that. That's also showing on Neon Alley, right? Does that
It's
carry a fee?
Neon Alley is free actually.
Okay.
It's showing on Hulu. It's Hulu Plus, Neon Alley, and Crunchyroll confirmed that they're going to be showing it.
Okay. So if you paid Crunchyroll or paid Hulu, or you could just watch on Neon Alley for free.
Right.
That sounds pretty fair.
Yeah, they're definitely doing a good job of making sure it's available. Like
Yeah,
even
that kind
with-
of coverage is praiseworthy.
even with the original series, they're putting up 2 episodes a week on Hulu every Monday, which Hulu and Neon Alley.
Well,
So
yeah, Hulu is whatever. Neon
Yeah.
Alley sounds good.
well,
When
yeah.
does it all start at the same time?
Yeah, I think Crunchy might have like a 24-hour delay or something like that, but close enough.
Oh, that sounds good.
I don't have the whole details
I
on
might
Crunchy.
actually watch Sailor Moon now because I've already paid for it in a sense.
She can win your heart by daylight while fighting evil by moonlight.
Well, if Sybil Shepherd could do it, I guess whoever this chick is, Rabbit Girl, she can do it too.
Sybil who? No, I'm joking.
Phyllis Diller.
Rabbit who? Seriously, who names the girl Rabbit?
Yeah, I know.
It's like all those old translations where they literally translated names in ADV shows. So characters named Como would be Duck in the American
Yep.
version.
Well, that's true. I mean, if you look at what was the show? Princess Tutu.
Yeah, that's what I was
Her
thinking.
name is Duck. So
I hate it.
that, which means duck.
Man.
But in that case, it totally makes sense. I mean, I completely appreciate that her name is Duck.
Well,
I actually started reading a Del Rey series that I'm pretty sure was never finished called Pastel a few years ago, back before Kadokawa bought Del Rey out too. And the main character in that was named Tada no Mugi, which literally means ordinary wheat.
Wow.
And the entire
Wow.
series was more or less about trying to watch this kid bang the heroine in the show who was having no part of that.
I mean, a lot of Japanese characters are named after some kind of flower or plant, so
Yeah, at this
It's-
point
it's
I think
just
it had to have been
normal
a joke name though, but yeah.
to them, and where it isn't for us. We name people after months of a year. We name people
Gemstones.
after fruits, but not all of them.
I'll name them
Yes.
after brand names. What's up, Kinkos?
Gemstones. You got like
God.
crystal, ruby.
Yeah.
That's right. We have some equivalents though too. I mean, you might
Uh,
occasionally meet somebody named Camellia, which of course in Japan you have with Tsubaki and things like that. So.
Mm.
Yeah, it's funny that Ruby is such a popular name and Emerald, which is worth more, is not popular.
It
You
doesn't
don't see
flow as
Sapphire very often either.
Hey,
Mm.
I think Emerald sounds sexy. Just gonna
It's a
say.
stripper name, dude.
There we go.
It is,
Crystal.
it is not a stripper name. Stripper names are Kiki.
All right, let's move on. This is going to a very bad place.
Now, Ruby is definitely a stripper name. Emerald, definitely not. I have not heard that.
Contribution to this conversation is the Crushinator.
And
All right, let's go forward because we're definitely going to a very dark place with this. Moving on. Aniplex showed off the first real dub trailer for Kill la Kill, which was shown during a live stream that announced the English cast of the series. They revealed most of the dub cast, including key characters like Ryuko, Satsuki, Senketsu. So there's some really good names in there. You've got like Erica Mendez, Carrie Karanen, Matt Mercer, Patrick Seitz. It's going to be a really strong overall dub. On top of this, it's getting what I've been calling the quote-unquote white glove treatment. Basically, the first volume, which hits on July 15th, is going to be available in standard DVD and Blu-ray, as well as a limited edition, which includes like soundtrack, postcard set, double-sided poster. They're kind of putting together a really nice package overall. Really, it's fantastic. The only way they could really fuck this up is if they went with, singles. Oh. Right.
Aniplex.
First volume's gonna be 100 minutes long.
Aniplex.
Four episodes. So that means the most likely format is gonna be 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, because it's 24 episode series. And it's gonna be 5 volumes. And the Blu-rays are gonna be $49.99 a piece.
I know
The
mine
DVDs
is.
are gonna be the DVDs are gonna be $39.99 a piece, and the premium edition is gonna be $74.98. So, doing the math, the whole price is gonna be $200. For standard Blu-rays is gonna be $249.90 for the series. DVDs are gonna be $199.90. Basically, we're going back to singles, guys.
Enjoy spending about $10 an episode.
I think you mean Aniplex is going back to singles, guys.
Yeah. And plus, going back to singles.
Yes, Aniplex is getting nostalgic for the days when nobody was making money.
Well, the problem was they were making money, but they also had a high piracy rate.
Yeah, there we go. They're pretty much just patting pirates on the back
Well,
right now.
They might have been making money, but the guys that were releasing singles back in the day were not making money because
True.
they were paying out the ass for the license.
True. Basically, the good old days.
Yeah.
Yep.
The good
Good
old
old days
days
of the
where
market
all of the
first.
money went back to Japan and the U.S. companies went bankrupt.
It's like they're learning nothing.
You know what? I can afford what Aniplex is charging. I also choose not to pay what Aniplex is charging, so I feel like I'm in an unique position. And I actually don't agree with that kind of grammar, but I'm saying it just for effect.
Needs more prepositions.
Yes.
But I've been able to afford that pretty much all anime that I've ever wanted, because most of the anime that I've ever wanted was in stores, and I just bought it. It's not a big deal. I didn't really know how big of a deal digital anime subs were until I decided to get social with my anime watching and go to a thing where people were showing anime. And hey, everything they were showing was a digital download. So I'm in a fairly unique position to say that I don't think that, I like anime. I love it, in fact. But I don't think that anything that they're charging for what they're offering is worth paying. And you know what? I'm comfortable with saying that. I don't. I'm kind of a digital consumer in the sense that I would rather watch things online anyway.
Right.
So the very fact that you're offering DVD or Blu-ray or a combo is kind of a problem for me to begin with, because I'm kind of in a small urban apartment and I can't fit that much to begin with. I have a storage unit, but it's filling up fast. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what she said.
Yeah. Well, trust me, her storage unit is filling up faster than mine. But I just don't know. I don't understand why I can't just watch this stuff online and pay for it.
Streaming really has sort of replaced a lot of the traditional model anyway, in many respects. Just pure convenience in many respects.
Yeah, it's... Well, and half the time I buy a Blu-ray, and we've talked about this before, and so I'll just be brief about it. I've bought a Blu-ray, and I want to watch it in Japanese. Nothing against the English dub. I know it's pretty good too. But I decide I want to watch in Japanese, and it's freaking stereo. So, I bought it for nothing. I bought it for the 5.1 English, which, like I said, that's nice, but it's not enough of a benefit above the stereo Japanese with subtitles that I already watched on Crunchyroll. What's the point in me buying that? Why should I pay for something that I already paid for, to be honest, and I don't get any benefit above that unless I want to watch it in English? So I think we're far beyond the whole piracy question at this point. We just do not get products that are worth paying for a lot of the time.
They are definitely having a hard time, sort of, I guess, justifying a lot of what they put out in sort of this modern age, too, in many respects. Yeah, I mean, even these days in my family, we almost never, want to pay full price for movies when they hit DVD and such either. We'll look and see if something is on... if a new movie just came out, if it's like $30 on DVD, we'll just say nuts to that and rent it on Amazon streaming and watch that instead that way. Just because it's faster. We did that with the Veronica Mars movie just the other weekend, in fact.
On top of that, you can do it right away. I mean...
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, with most movies especially, how often are you going to watch it? Probably once, right?
Indeed. Usually if I actually invest in getting a movie in my library, it's one I know that I'm going to want to watch more than once. Like a couple weeks back, we got Her on DVD too, which I'm happy to have in my collection now just because it's a ridiculously good movie. But yeah, most movies I'd want to see, I'd rather just either stream or get as a disc through the mail like we usually do through Netflix and then leave it at that.
I tend to be of the opposite camp. I tend to like my discs. I love my physical media. I'm just weird that way.
Yeah, I like mine for my games, and I'll do it for movies that I actually want to see or shows that I'd like to have to easily access at any time. But I feel like if it's something I'm gonna maybe want to see or watch once, but aren't necessarily gonna want to have it around to watch it whenever I want, then I usually just go with streaming or what do you call it, or just buy a cheaper physical copy of it. It's yeah. What am I thinking here? I lost my train of thought. Yes, basically I'll just go with streaming or a Netflix disc in the mail and things like that. And I mean, that's what we do with most movies these days anyway. That's instead of going to theaters, we just get the disc in the mail from Netflix.
Mm.
Well, I'm not saying I don't like the disc media. I I mean, compared to online streaming, the disc media is better, but it's not always better. And when it's not better, that's the issue. I mean,
Yeah,
okay,
there's a question of
if you look at
value in there.
if you look at a Blu-ray especially, I mean, Blu-ray video is it tends to be large enough storage to it can have 1080 video at very low compression, very high quality, and audio at 7.2 channels and or 7.1, excuse me. Also very high quality. Close to lossless. It's fantastic, but that is just not what we get with anime. At the most, we're usually talking about anime videos here. You get 5.1 audio, and that's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, but it's not what Blu-ray supports, and it's pretty much what DVD supports. It's not any better than it was however many years ago, before Blu-ray even came on the scene.
Yeah, I'm kind of clueless about all of that stuff, so it doesn't even enter the equation for me since we just use an upscaling player on our HD TVs, and otherwise, I myself still haven't gotten an HD TV yet, so I'm still using an SD TV and standard DVD player even now.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of what's good enough, the internet has what's good enough. It's 1080. Sure, it's highly compressed, but whatever. And it's stereo Japanese, which 99% of what we get on Blu-ray, it seems, is stereo Japanese. So it's like, why should I, a run-of-the-mill consumer at this point, pay more for a Blu-ray when I can just watch it on Crunchyroll and get pretty much the same experience?
Yeah, there doesn't really seem to be a lot of extra value in the argument there.
All right, and our last story tonight. A few days ago, one of ADV's numerous legal sagas has finally reached an end. Funimation's lawsuit against ADV Films was settled and the case was dismissed. A document filed with the Harris County District Clerk on April 28th reveals that ADV Films and Funimation reached a settlement via a mediator. A couple weeks later, the document was filed saying that the case was settled with the agreement of both parties. Both Funimation and Section 23 confirmed this. So all seems to be good. For a little background, this has been running for about 3 years now, give or take. Originally, Funimation filed suit against 9 parties: AD Vision, John Ledford, Ace Holdings, Saffron Studios, Sentai Filmworks, Sentai Holdings, Section 23 Films, Unio Mystica Holdings or Switchblade Pictures, and Valkyrie Media Partners. Basically, Funimation alleged that Arm Corporation granted the rights to 30 titles for a mutually agreed upon price. ADV was unable to keep up with the payments and wound up defaulting on its debts. Funimation argued that before Arm dissolved their Western operations, they were granted the right to enforce the agreement, thus making Funimation the creditor. To make matters worse, Funimation argued that a number of former ADV executives formed new companies to which ADV sold their assets, which was everything from licenses to the office building, at a rate that was well well below market value. ADV declared bankruptcy with no assets, which would leave them with nothing to liquidate and therefore nothing to have to pay to their creditors. The transfer of assets was said to have been made with the quote unquote intent to defer, hinder, or defraud the creditors ADV, leaving new organizations on hook for ADV's debts. The defense filed a counterclaim saying that the companies didn't exist at the time of the agreement and therefore weren't liable. Because Funimation wasn't involved in the initial contract, the company had no right to claim damages. So, yeah. Sometime along the way, ADV filed another counterclaim, which named all branches of Funimation as well as Gen Fukunaga, Anime LP Holdings, and Anime Online, calling the lawsuit an illicit scheme designed to obliterate competition in the market for Japanese anime. ADV invoked the Sherman Antitrust Act and sought monetary damages as well as a restraining order that Funimation not exercise the rights obtained from ARM. Yeah, that was thrown out. But the case itself was finally settled. So, your thoughts, guys?
They all got a taste of the bitch pudding.
I think you never really know what happens in something like this. The ADV slash Sentai slash Acer Holdings slash Section 28 Films slash Seraphim Studios slash whatever other companies they created side of this has never really come to light. Just from the fact that I've mentioned all of those names, it makes them sound mighty guilty in a sense, but I don't know. I mean, there's what we see and there's what is, and that's never really all that clear, you know. Funimation is alleging that they are the proper creditors of ADV's debt, and they were suing companies that were not ADV. Although all of us know that they sort of were ADV. So
yeah, to the point that people
maybe this is an acknowledgement that the ADV umbrella is liable to what Funimation claims that they're able to collect on. I really don't know. And I don't think anybody else does either. This is lawyer territory, and it's hard to really comment on it.
It really is, because I mean, not only is it such a big case between these two groups, but it's one that went on for 2 years, so it's definitely a lot of material that we can't even begin to comprehend with. I mean,
it may not even be that much material. It just took this long. I mean,
there's a lot of material. In my initial reporting, I went through around 300 pages of documents.
Sure. But in lawyer speak, that is saying, hello, these are our claims.
True.
Objection.
I mean, in the long term, it may be that hardly anything has happened. It's just hard to say. The long arm of the law is long. They don't know anything that happens quickly.
True.
If either of these companies were wholly black, we would have seen this taken care of very quickly. Justice system. Corruption.
It's a little bit weird, considering that old ATV owes Funimation money.
Yeah.
But, you know, it just goes to show that the complexity of the deals that happened are pretty great.
There are a lot of intricacies that we can begin to comprehend there. I mean, how long was it before we saw our first actual licensing agreement? I mean, most people didn't realize how much these companies actually paid for anime until a couple of years ago when that first licensing sheet finally came out and people were just going nuts over it, remember?
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, they paid this much for that and this?
And something tells me that the lawsuit from Funimation is either it's either because the amount that we're dealing with is substantial, or the companies that they deal with kind of egg them on to this. The Japanese companies are very comfortable in their stance that they don't really sue anybody because everything is honky-dory pretty much all of the time, except when it isn't, they don't want their fingerprints on it.
Right. Yeah, they'd rather not get their hands dirty on something like this. All right, everyone, that's our show. Thanks, as always, for joining us. I'm Mike Ferrer, signing off.
I'm Matt Brown, signing off.
I'm Beeve McGreeve. Lates.